I showed you what came out of the box in a vacuum-formed ABS plastic Clone Trooper armor kit. Now I'm going to show you how to turn that into your own custom-fitted Clone Trooper armor. Today on Darth Rage Reviews.
Darth Rage Reviews, your source for the Force? Nah, for the Republic!
Greetings, Force fans, and welcome to another episode of Darth Rage Reviews, your source for the Force. So today we're back at it talking about Clone Trooper armor. So I showed you in the first video in this Cody build series. Please, if you haven't checked out the entire series, I encourage you to. I showed you what you get out of the box in an 850 ArmorWorks vacuum-formed ABS plastic Clone Trooper kit. Today, I'm going to show you kind of how to take that next step and begin forming this to your own personally sized armor. This is probably, sorry, it's falling down here. This is probably the most daunting step. This is the first time you're going to cut into the plastic, and a lot of people are worried that, I might mess up, So I want to belay your fears. It's a hard thing to mess up. Yes, you can mess up, but you can always fix what you mess up. Take a little extra work, but there's nothing in here that you cannot damage to the point you can't fix it, honestly. And if you do somehow manage to damage it to the point you can't fix it, you can always order a replacement piece. So this for me was, the first time I actually cut into the armor was, the most worried I was, because I hadn't done any of this before, and I was worried that I would mess it up. But it's really not a hard process. There's many different ways to do it. I'm going to show you using a Dremel. I've got a Dremel for this, so I use a couple different attachments for it, as well as a mouse sander and some hand sandpaper. You can do this all with an X-Acto knife. You can do it with just sandpaper. You don't need any power tools to do this. It makes it a little easier with power tools, but you don't need them. So that's what you get. So what we've got here is I've taken some of these pieces almost to the point of they're ready for paint and treatment. So like the pieces that aren't going to require any joining, anything like that, I've gone through. Now I'll fix some of the uneven lines on there, but these are mostly done. All the edges are smooth. It's, ready to go. So these are the pieces that I don't need to do any kind of joining with them. The elbows here and the knees, I'll need to add the straps to them and some padding in them as well. But these pieces are basically ready to go. So I've taken these all the way through, which is cutting them, rough cutting them, sanding them with the Dremel, sanding them with hand sandpaper, sanding them with the mouse sander, just to get the edge that you really want for that. So these are complete there. I've got other pieces, like the cod and the butt. So there's the cod, there's the butt. These are basically cut out, but you can see I haven't done any of the trimming around there. I won't really do this until after I get the ab portion done, because this will correspond to the ab portion. I haven't even trimmed the abs yet, or the chest or back. I know that I say many times that you want to start with the abs. However, I've built so many of these armors, and this is an armor for myself. I know what I need the arms and the legs to be. So I can start on the arms and the legs, get all that done. Then I do the ab, then butt, cod, and chest. Get all those put in there at one time, because the chest, back, and the butt and the cod are dependent on how big the abs are. The rest of these pieces, it doesn't really matter. They're really more shaped towards your body. So it's not going to be dependent on how large the abs are. So little piece of advice, asterisk piece of advice. So we've got those pieces. We've got pieces like the leg pieces, which I have not yet begun to close up. So when you're doing the biceps and the forearms with this kit, you pretty much cut them out on the lines that you can tell are there, and then you'll form those just like that. With the leg pieces, there is an overlap that occurs. So you can see how it's kind of got a line up there and a line up there. You want to line those up you know, like so. So they're lined up. And then you're going to basically kind of draw a line on this, cut it, and meld it here. You know, not like this. You don't want to do an overlap like this. It's impossible to get rid of that seam. So you're going to cut this and then put it together. Both leg pieces require a little more work than the arm pieces. The thighs are the same, and the thighs actually require not a whole lot, but a little bit of playing around. So you can see this piece right here lines up with this piece right here. So you're going to have those lined up, this end lined up, and then you end up with like a big gap on both sides on the bottom, and you're going to kind of trim those up together once you put them together. But these require measuring, you know, a little more finesse. So I usually do the legs after I do the arms. When you get to the arms, and I'll show you this further in the next video, but I've already begun the process of creating the seamless armor here. And this is a really fun process because you get to play with science. Science is cool. You make ABS slurry, which is basically a plastic glue that's made with the spare pieces of the armor that you cut off, and acetone. You can see, I hope you can see, there's a shim in there on that side, and there's a shim on that side. You use the ABS plastic to glue those together, and then you fill the seams with more ABS plastic, let that dry, and then I'm going to sand that down to create the seamless armor. So that's how that's done on all the arm pieces. That's how it will eventually be done on the leg pieces. But that's for the next video. I'll kind of give you guys a clue and a hint and a peek into how we do this. This is the most fun that I have with the armor, is making this seamless stuff. So that's what you get when you start to cut this stuff out. So why don't I show you a little bit of the process? You know, my goal with this video is to basically give you the knowledge and the tools to do this yourself. I'm not going to show every single second of every single thing. I'm just going to show you cutting, sanding, melding, because the techniques that you use on all the pieces. So this one's going to really kind of focus on the cutting and the sanding of the pieces, just so you guys kind of know the process that I use. So let's take a look at cutting clone armor. So I start the process, I like to go over all the seams with a pencil just to kind of show you where you're going to cut. You can use a marker, you can use it doesn't matter. You're going to cut over this anyway, and you're going to paint all the armor. I choose to cut my armor with a Dremel. You could use an X-Acto knife. You don't need to use a Dremel for this. You could use a bandsaw, I suppose. It doesn't matter. There's many different right ways to do this. I just prefer to use my Dremel to do these cuts. And then you're going to end up with little pieces that are kind of all cut out like that. I do this for all the pieces. You can see the scraps kind of gather in there on the bottom. I use that later to create the ABS slurry to meld these. Then I come back and I'm going to kind of finish up where I made these rough cuts, and I sand them down. Here I'm using my Dremel with a sanding tip. I also use hand sandpaper at times. I use a mouse sander. It's all kinds of different techniques. It's, you know, kind of each piece determines what it is by how rough it is or what it needs done. Here I am with the mouse sander coming over some of the hand armor. You know, again, it's to each their own preference. No right way or wrong way to do this. And you don't need a whole lot of super powerful equipment to do it either. You know, hand sandpaper works as well. It takes a little longer. So I also go over at the end with the hand sandpaper just to kind of make it tight. Then I have a piece of sandpaper on the table. I use that for the pieces that are melded together. It just makes a nice straight seam and makes it easier to do. That's it. That's cutting your clone armor. That is how you do it. So I use lots of different techniques. You know, again, you don't have to use the tools that I'm using. You know, any sandpaper will work, any sanding technique, any cutting method or tool will work. You by no means need to use a Dremel. You don't need a mouse sander. You don't need any of that stuff. But you can see how I use a multitude of techniques to really bring this stuff to where you need it to be. So where do I go from here? So from here, you know, these pieces will probably be put aside until after I get everything joined together. Then I'll start working on adding the padding and strapping to these. Same with this. This is literally just Velcro and paint. So these are ready to go. I'm going to end up doing all the armor and finishing all the armor first, and then I'll probably paint it all together. It's just easier for me to do it that way. I don't know. I may start painting early, but that's the process. So where do we go from here? The next video is going to walk you through the what many people consider the hardest part of clone armor, and that's creating that seamless armor look. A lot of sanding. There's not a whole lot of sanding in a clone in general. There is a whole lot of sanding in the seams. So when you're making it seamless, this is where the headache comes in, and this is where the majority of the labor comes in. So the next video, I'll walk you through the process of creating ABS slurry, using it to meld and glue these together, and then using it to fill the seams that you've created. It's a fun process. It's the most fun, again, that I've had building clones, but it's also the most difficult. So stay tuned for the next video for that. But in the meantime, I hope you guys did enjoy this. If you have any specific questions about building a clone, please drop it in the comments. If there's something that you want to see in this process specifically, again, drop it in the comments. I aim to create content that you guys want to see. As always, this is something I feel like anybody can do. I didn't know how to do any of this before I started doing this. So I encourage you all, if it's something that you feel like you may want to try, grab a helmet somewhere. Go to Galactic Armory, get a 3D printed helmet. You don't need a 3D printer. Let him print it for you, send it to you. Use code DarthRage at checkout for 10% off. And try to finish it. Watch the videos out there. Get the knowledge. And then everything you learn in that, you can apply to your next project and your next project. And trust me, you're going to have fun doing it. So if you enjoyed this, please give me a like, give me a comment, give me a subscribe if you're not subscribed. As always, guys, I'm Darth Rage. This is Darth Rage Reviews, your source for the Force.
The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.